Okay. Yay!
Excellent. And so now...
Live! Look at that. What is that? Is someone calling us still?
That's fine.
Yeah, it's probably doubling up.
Yeah, let's do this.
Are you able to see my screen now, Lydia?
Yep.
Fabulous.
Awesome.
Great. So really taking this opportunity to share some of the software solutions that we have built out in-house. And all of this stemmed from, as we were growing really quickly, I obviously was brought in this year and sort of got to see what it looks like to take something that worked for one grade level and watch it grow to be suddenly being used across 3 different campuses and 4 grade levels, and how some of those systems can become inefficient pretty quickly. And so trying to figure out how to take this mix of sort of using paper a lot and having this large array of different spreadsheets and condense those down into websites that are going to be able to actually get teachers exactly to the information they need quickly, and of course save everyone time in the process. This website right here, lexilereport.com, we rely very heavily on our Lexile reporting in order to sort of gauge student growth and progress. As a matter of fact, it's probably used as much, if not more, than even our quarterly assessments. Robbie, would you say that's a pretty fair statement?
Yeah, especially at the beginning of the year. I think that first quarter, that Lexile number is definitely more important than the quarter assessment number, because the quarter we're still calibrating what the quarterly assessments mean, so we don't have as many longitudinal sort of comparison points, whereas obviously we do for the Lexile. So we could tell immediately whether this quarter from school to school looks similar or different from previous quarters from a Lexile perspective.
We've also found that there isn't any single metric that's a better gauge of how a student's going to perform on state testing than their ability to read. Our Lexile scores more correlate with students' actual TCAP scores in previous years than any other assessment method that we have. And so up to this point, we had our Lexile scores in a spreadsheet, but aside from just being able to sort, there wasn't a lot that we were able to do with that data. So we built this website, which first of all just gives you a slightly nicer looking display of the information that you're looking for. So we have the actual scholastic number, which is the 3-digit number, and then the program generates the grade level equivalent score. So you can see this student came in at a 4.6 grade level back in July. They then progressed up to a 4.66 and then a 4.68. Now we can drill down and say, so is this student on track? What does that actually mean? So I opened up a graph display, and we can see that the gray line is the average amount of growth you would need to see each quarter to stay on track of progressing 1 grade level per year. So this student is almost exactly following that line, which is why they're marked as yellow, which means that they're not regressing, but they're certainly not necessarily growing at the rate that we want to see them grow at. Now we can sort our growth to be able to see here are some of our higher students. So let's compare that with a student that is growing quickly, and you can see that their performance greatly outpaces that average yearly growth line. Now, for the sake of grouping and being able to understand information about specific teachers and advisories, first of all, you're able to say, just show me, let's say, all students who in July started at a grade level between grade levels 4 and 7. So right now, we can see that 38% of our students started off between a 4th through 6th grade level. We could even, for a more interesting stat, come down to 0 and come down to 4, and see only that half of our students came in below grade level. We could also break that up by advisory to see, so in this advisory, there were only 2 students that were below grade level. So this was a higher performing advisory group.
And Ryan, wouldn't it be like a 0 to 5? Since they're entering 5th grade, they should be at a 5.0 when they start?
Correct, yes. So for all students, 75%.
Ryan, real fast, I just wanted to say Alex Fan has just joined us too.
Yeah.
Alex, we're looking, so I don't know if you've met Ryan in New York. I know you know Ravi, but Ryan is the genius behind all these new tools that RePublic's developing.
I love it.
And he's walking us through right now just he built a tool to look at Lexile data because
Very
they
cool.
look at it every few months and use it as sort of the biggest predictor on.
Awesome. Thanks for your time this morning, Ryan.
Hey, my pleasure.
Great. All right, back to you, Ryan.
Yeah, sure. So this gives you some really quick statistical information, whereas before having this website, if we wanted to know what percentage of students came in below grade level, obviously that would mean going into spreadsheets, checking with other schools to make sure that each school's data was up to date in that spreadsheet and not in a different one, and then going through and running calculations. Now all of this is automatically built in, so this syncs with the Scholastic data. So teachers have this data within the same day that their students take the Scholastic test. So the second we have the most recent information, teachers are able to start grouping and making decisions based on that information. You're also able to, by group, look at overall averages depending on when that test was taken, and you're able to see a graphical display comparing all of your different schools. So from a CMO standpoint, we're looking right now at a graph showing our 3 schools in 5th grade. So you can see in a Nashville Prep, is behind the other 2 schools, but they also started proportionally below, which gives a lot of really great perspective. You can also see how Liberty and NACS are performing compared to each other almost identically. And then, of course, if you're curious, you can go back to the previous page and drill down and say, okay, so which advisory is performing the highest and lowest? What are those teachers doing? And then start to pull that for your other schools. From a CMO standpoint, it just gets you to the information you need pretty quickly. We will continue to build this out as we get feedback. One of the great things about building the software in-house is anything's possible. So, for example, this in range was not there originally, and then we had a principal say, you know, it would be really helpful, and I was able to build that feature out for them and have it, you know, available within about 24 hours for them. So making your software immediately responsive to your day-to-day needs as opposed to having to adapt what you're doing in the classroom to what software allows you to do. Instead, we're adopting what our software can do to what our teachers need.
Quick question. So who's looking at this? Like, does every teacher have access to this and they could just drill?
Correct.
Okay.
Every teacher has access, administrators have access, and given the fact, so you can easily filter for a student. So let's say that I was meeting with Jacob Ferguson, sure. Let's say I was meeting with this student. I can just filter their name out, so I can actually sit down with parents and say, like, here's how your child's performing, right? So notice July to October, we were having pretty much stagnant growth, and then suddenly whatever's been going on between October and December, the student's like gone way high here in the past couple months. And so you can sit down with the family and the student and say, like, what's changed, and how can we keep that up?
Great. You want to move to the Focus app, Ryan?
Yeah, sure. So, and I guess I should preface, I actually have 4 different built-out software solutions that we're using in our schools, and I'm happy to show you all of them. So this is our most recent. I actually just rolled this out to our very first pilot school Friday. Focus time has pretty consistently been difficult to make as meaningful as possible, simply because there gets
Ryan,
to the...
let me back up and just remind them what Focus is. Sure. Focus is our daily tutoring block where we match students with the teacher and the skill. And so it's been this block that we've had since year 1. And we had some bumps in the road earlier in the year in implementation and are helping our teachers sort through how to identify the best student and skill.
Well, what were the nature of those bumps, Robbie?
Yeah.
I think the biggest was that we had normally the way that we staffed Focus was that we had our student supports team, like our special education teachers, serve as the air traffic controller for a given grade level. So basically all the teachers would bombard that person with requests, and then that student support special ed teacher would then generate lists for the week. We realized, like, number one, that even if it was working in the past, the larger we grow as an institution, we don't have one special ed teacher per grade level, and so we started to put a lot of strain on our special ed teachers. And then second, we had teachers, we had a dramatic increase, like double the number of special education students entering Nashville Prep this year. So in this school in particular, we just were maxing out the capacity of our people. And the third was just, I don't think that we were as precise as we thought we were in identifying groups, even when it was working at its best.
Yep.
So in order to, especially Robbie kind of pointed out the air traffic controller analogy, when multiple teachers are requesting the same student, that becomes a very difficult thing for any one individual to parse out. Well, so the student's going to go here this day, but they can't go here this day because they're already going to be here. And you can imagine across multiple subjects, and especially once our schools have grown to be 4 grade levels, it was almost impossible. And so it either became a stress point and very time-consuming, or it just didn't get done well. This program was the answer to that problem. It syncs with all of our day-to-day assessment data. So what you're looking at right here is data that teachers put in each day from their exit tickets. You've got it broken out by each standard, and then for each standard, you can open up and see each individual objective. All of our exit ticket data is put in by objective. So this data automatically syncs for teachers, so they're not having to like double enter data, which has been something else that we've been working hard to avoid. As a teacher, you can analyze this data pretty effectively in terms of...
Hey, Ryan, sorry, did you say exit ticket data is going to automatically upload?
So the teachers are entering their exit ticket data into a program called Kickboard, which is what we use for a wider range of analysis.
Yep.
This syncs with that, so they don't then have to come here and put data in too. Once they've done it once, this syncs up.
Do you have a deadline during the day that teachers all have to have their data in?
They're supposed to have their exit ticket data in by the end of day.
Got it.
This generates by week. So what's going to happen is throughout the week, teachers are going to go through, knowing that Focus meets 4 days a week, which is why there's 4 days up here. They're going to go through and they're going to pick, okay, so this is this objective that I need to work on. So they're going to select it, and it's automatically going to add it into their priority list. Once it's in this priority list, they can then say, you know, I don't want to work with students that are the lowest performing students on this objective. I want to take, let's say, just the bubble students that have one misconception. So I'm going to filter this back some. So let's just take the 16 students that are between a 38 and an 80. Now notice this jumped down to 1 day. The program is estimating for them the number of days that those students will get broken up. So when we were up here with 50 kids, we're not going to have 50 different students in our class at one time. So it's saying that's going to actually get broken up across 3 days. So it'll take maybe the first 15 on day 1, and the next 15 on day 2, and then the remaining 20 on day 3. The way that it breaks that up depends on what other teachers have selected. So it's a pretty tricky algorithm underneath the hood. Once each teacher has done this, it's going to take all of this information. And you can add as many objectives as you want. You can see I've actually gone over here, so I should probably scale this back down some. Maybe if this comes down some too. There we go. Now we're down to exactly 4 days. So as a teacher, I'm now done. Once each teacher is done with this, the principal has a master submit button. And I'm not logged in as the principal right now, but it looks pretty similar to this, except for it says lock. Once it's locked, the program creates rosters for each teacher. So this is the students that teacher will have for day 1, or Monday. These are the students that teacher will have on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. This list is based on those objectives, and you can see it says these are the kids for these objectives, these are the kids for these objectives. And then all teachers are listed on this page, and the program has gone through to make sure that no students in the same roster twice. So all that air traffic control work is done. Teachers are able to figure out what they're going to do on Focus to make sure that it's aligned to standards in pretty much no time at all.
This is awesome. Robbie, what's I mean, some of those groups are pretty big, so it's kind of like a whole class. It's like a just-in-time whole class on this subject in a lot of cases.
It all depends. Like, what we've seen in Focus over the years is that some teachers love the big groups for Focus because they treat it just like a reteach that can get wedged in without having to move around their unit sequence. Like, think math teacher teaching the cuspers. Like, they love the big groups. But, like, some teachers really want a small group. And, Ryan, I don't know if you can talk a little bit about how the program allows for that or not.
Yep, so I just logged in as the principal. You can see this is a different page. The principal has a couple of options. And once again, this got rolled out last week, so I'm anticipating some feedback and this process being tweaked some as teachers get in and really identify how it works best for them. Right now, the principal can set the maximum number of students in Focus. The smaller the number, the smaller the class sizes. But the more you run into problems of then one room becomes really big to manage the offset. So this is going to be a number that a principal is going to have to set based on their knowledge of how many extra rooms they have. Notice this says number of stretch rooms. Any student that's not selected on a day goes into stretch, which is just basically an extra class. A lot of the times this might be used for homework or study hall.
And Ryan, just to pause there, Ryan, I'm actually already here, but Ryan and I are in week 2 of going through, starting with Nashville Prep, to turn the stretch rooms into Khan Academy rooms.
Yep.
And so we did it with the 8th grade last week at Nashville Prep, and so this week we're doing it with the 5th grade, and we're going one grade level at a time to implement the stretch room as Khan Academy and setting up kids with accounts, teaching the teachers how to run a Khan Academy room, how to analyze the data, how to run leaderboards, how to understand the sort of process for identifying what level of students on, and then how to like publicly recognize students who are ahead. And so that's our plan over time, is to transition one grade level at a time of stretch rooms into Khan.
Yep.
What are the stretch rooms right now doing?
It depends on the school. Some schools are doing, like, allowing kids to do homework. Some are, like, sort of advanced book clubs. Some are independent reading. Some are, like, you know, like I know Annie at Liberty does, like, a leadership seminar in 8th grade.
Yeah.
You don't go around. So it's, like, it's totally up to the principal and sometimes the grade level.
And one last question about the grouping. Is it mandated that every student has to attend a focus time per week, or is it there sometimes that just for whatever reason they're just in the stretch room the entire 4 days?
Yeah, a good example of that. So students that are not being pulled into a focus room are typically going to be students that are already performing really well in those classes. And so the logic behind using Khan Academy in those stretch rooms is that those students can then have work assigned to them that's pushing them and is still engaging and challenging for them. Because if a teacher's remediating a skill that student already has mastered, there's no need for them to sit through that remediation. And it would be better for them to be able to have a personalized path that's been set through Khan Academy, where they may be diving into trigonometry, or they may be doing more complex text analysis by guiding simple teachers.
Cool.
So right now, group size is constrained by teacher, not by student who needs a smaller group, right?
Yeah, it's really a balancing game of just what's the lowest number we can get without overwhelming one classroom with students. And each principal's kind of tweaking that on their own.
Yep.
One other thing that I'll add here, these are interchangeable. The principal is able to give each teacher, this is ranked by priority. So you run into a situation where the same kid has to get split and they're being requested in multiple places. This allows the principal to say, okay, in the case of a tie where 2 teachers need a student, you can see this teacher has set the literacy teachers up to get first dibs. So when there is conflicting requests, the program filters it by a priority ranking that the principal has set. Yeah.
So you can set priorities for individual kids.
I'm sorry?
You can set priorities for individual kids.
Right now, the priority is set by the subject area that teacher teaches.
Okay.
So the principal's saying literacy gets priority right now.
Yep.
And Alex, the inspiration behind the algorithm that we used was, I don't know if you saw this a couple of weeks back, maybe a couple months back, the New York Times had an article about the New York selection lottery system for magnet.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, so we actually, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong because we haven't talked about this in a while, but we actually, we saw the way that they prevented, like basically what we liked about that system was that if you didn't get your first choice, you used to, and I know this from personal experience, you used to get kicked to the back of the line, and we wanted to make sure that didn't happen with students, and so we mimicked that, where in this case, instead of schools, which in New York's case is it's teachers, so like if you're the second teacher and you request a student, that student is not like the student who wasn't requested by the first teacher necessarily. It could be somebody who was requested by the first teacher but who didn't meet the overflow, and then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that, and Ryan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was where at least that was the start of the conversation.
Yeah, that was definitely the inspiration behind the algorithm that's doing all the logic behind the scenes.
It's really smart.
So I can move on if that works well for you guys.
Yep.
This, once again, originally at the very beginning, we were in a situation where our administrators and peers were doing observations, and it was a very sort of informal, like write down some strengths, write down some weaknesses. Then it would turn into a coaching session where the teacher and principal would together identify an area where the teacher improves, and that process would sort of continue. The problem is, as we got larger, that became a lot more difficult to manage and distribute evenly, and it also became very difficult to track progress over time. We didn't really have a great system for, so here are these areas of strength, and now like let's revisit this each quarter and track how are our teachers growing. Up to this point in this year, we've done that with some spreadsheets, but you get back into that same issue where it's very difficult to get meaningful visualizations of just like large volumes of static cells. So this program is an observation program. We built our own in-house rubric. So I'm currently logged in as Linda, and I'm going to do an evaluation on myself because this is the live version, and I would hate to be joking around or doing a demo on an actual teacher and then feel like they're doing terribly. So anyways, once I start an observation, you can see that our rubric is broken up into 5 major categories: culture, content, engagement, demonstration of learning, and excellence. For each of these, the observer can quickly give a numerical score. And as they're giving a score, they can see an average that's tracking the total score that they're giving that person along with a breakdown of each score. There are also the actual bullet points that describe that particular line item are visible in this text editor that the person can then come in, you know, and add notes as that person goes. So you move through and you're giving scores for each individual point. And then that teacher or the observer is able to go to an overview page where they're able to see, had I done like the other points, you would have seen those bars there. So overall, for culture, this teacher gave me a 3.7. Now, if I had multiple people observing me, it would show up here, and I could see like Linda's bar, and then I could see someone else's bar to see how different people perceive the same points.
Is Linda's bar bigger than the other people's bars?
So, no comment there. So,
that's what we call it. Bill Belichick is what he just did.
Yeah. So we can also zoom in and see those individual line items. So I can see how I did on each point. If the teacher left notes, which I left notes on routine, I can see the actual qualitative feedback that teacher left me as well. The observer is also able to give general feedback here, and the teacher is able to upload their actual lesson plan or any other associated documents to this individual observation. The person, you're also given a school view. Right now, I'm logged in for Q3 audits, which haven't happened, so there is no data here. But this also gives you a school view of how all your teachers are doing in individual areas. And as an observer, you can see your progress over time as well. So once again, this just gets right to the heart of getting people the information that they need in a simple and focused, organized way without all of the clutter and version confusion that happens with just sharing spreadsheets.
Ravi, how have your teachers reacted to this? Like, do they find it helpful, or is it too much information?
Well, the teachers don't interact yet with this version of the online. It's only the principals and us right now.
Got it. Okay.
We're rolling it out at this very second, but they've been interacting throughout the year with the Excel version of it, which is the same content.
Yeah.
It's just incredibly difficult to read, and so I would say that they are, in fact, overwhelmed by the amount of information the average person I talk to. Our goal is twofold. Number one, there are a lot of things we want to change about the rubric itself, but we don't want to do that mid-year because then it would screw up our ability to compare across quarters. So there's already like a separate conversation about whether we've simplified enough the amount of rubric items we have. But this system definitely just makes it easier to read and to collect the information. And so that's a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
There's also something to be said for sort of looking at larger trends in the tech industry. Everything is being built off the idea of having access to granular data. And when your information lives in static documents, you pretty much are it's imprisoned to that document. You can't then later on down the road say, hey, I'm going to build a program that lets me sort this in a new way, or lets me build something new with this that we haven't even anticipated yet. But when all of your data is stored in actual databases, then at any point in time, we're able to take this and pivot in totally new directions as new ideas and new technologies arise that simply aren't possible in sort of the old way of doing it. The last full-fledged program that we've launched this semester is interesting. We have had, for lunch every day, based on students' behavior and performance on their homework, they get grouped into one of three categories. They either have detention for lunch that day, homework club, which is not necessarily a punishment, but it means the homework that they turned in that morning just wasn't a high enough caliber to pass, or if neither of those are true, they have recess. What we had been doing, our culture team, our grade level leaders, would sort of frantically run around every classroom about an hour before lunch and collect each teacher's paper merit and demerit sheets. They would then try and enter every single merit and demerit into spreadsheets, sort those, then figure out which kids had more than 4, and then create lists of, okay, here are all the kids with more than 4, they're in detention, and then figure out now how do those break out across the rooms. Here are all the kids that didn't turn their homework, which is a separate paper form that they had to collect, and try and put all that together in about an hour or two to then hand back out to teachers to tell kids where to go for lunch. Once again, in 5th grade, this is a really great system. When suddenly your school has 4 grade levels and a staff of 40 people, this becomes a pretty big job. So what this program does, once again, it automatically syncs with Kickboard. So our teachers are, first of all, entering their merits and demerits directly into Kickboard with touchscreen tablets, as opposed to doing it on paper and then having someone else enter everything in later. Afterwards, this automatically syncs with all of that behavior data and shows the teacher this is an out view. So basically, for this homeroom, here are the kids going to detention. They're going to this room for detention. Here are the kids going to homework club. They're going to this room for homework club. And here are the kids who have recess. Once lunch starts, you just switch to the end view, and it shows you, so if you're the person running OU5, here are all the kids coming to you for detention. If you're running UNC5, here are all the kids coming to you from homework club, and it even shows you where they're coming from. Here are the kids for recess, here are the kids for detention. And the program intelligently figures out which room should be used for what disciplinary purpose based on the number of students in that room to minimize hallway mobility. Now, once again, we're at this point where with one button click, we've accomplished what it was taking a team of 5 to 10 people to do over the course of several hours each day.
Ryan, if we have time, 2 things I would love for you to show them are, number one, just quickly show them the drop cam situation and what we're doing with drop cams in our schools. That might be tricky given it's video in video, but we'll see how that goes. And the other is maybe a 5-cent tour of the coding website right now.
Oh, yeah. We have installed drop cams in a lot of our classrooms. I sort of was the first person to run into this problem. I oversee computer programming teachers in lots of different buildings. And so I quickly ran into this problem that in order to give meaningful feedback to my teachers each week, I was having to drive to 3 different campuses every single week, which was not necessarily the most effective use of time. Now, every single class is live streamed. So what we're watching right now is a live version of this class. Now, we're not using this for like disciplinary issues or conversations with parents. This is completely an internal system for providing feedback. So as a coach, I can have 3 different tabs, and I can have all 3 coding teachers up live, and while one's doing, circulating the room for a project, I can flip over and watch the other one give a lesson, and I can provide live feedback. Especially since our teachers who are teaching coding walked in without having a lot of content knowledge. There's even been really great instances where I've been able to be observing someone in real time while they have a chat line with me open, and I can give real-time feedback to them. If a student asks a question they're not sure the answer to, I can provide that answer, and they're answering that student 60 seconds later. This provides all of our principals also for Huddle. We saw the rubric and all of these different things teachers are being measured on. This gives an opportunity to capture and then save permanently exemplar models of what excellence looks like for each of those points. So we're now building up a library of all of these different excellent techniques and all of the amazing things that our teachers do in the classroom to share out as a part of culture, but also as a way to help teachers move towards excellence more quickly.
Hey, quick question.
Yeah.
With a single camera, you're able to get good enough audio that, I mean, I saw one of the feedback forms, which seemed amazing. I'm just trying to figure out, what are your audio challenges using a single web-enabled low-cost device?
It's remarkably good audio compared to what our iPhone and what are those things called that we used to use?
Flip cams.
Oh yeah, flip cams. It's way better audio. But we've actually, our goal is to have one in the front and one in the back of every classroom, so that you can actually switch off to whoever, like if it's the teacher talking or the student talking, you can get the better audio you need. And you get 5-day or 30-day playback depending on what your account says. So even if you're watching it in real time and you don't catch the audio the way that you want it, you could go back and capture the interaction that you want if you have enough cameras set up in the classroom.
That's super cool. Have you heard of Alt School, Robbie?
What did you say?
Have you heard of Alt School?
I have. I think from you I've heard of it.
Yeah, so they're creating they're doing something totally different, but their side project is they're creating a 360-degree camera with audio that allows them to focus in a noisy room, focus in on an individual kid's conversation. Yeah, it's super cool. I'm sure it'll be years before they let anyone else touch it, but just want you to know that they at least were working on it.
Robbie, we'll have to build something like that ourselves.
Yeah. Right now it's good for the teacher and the student answering for everybody. It doesn't give us the conversations right now. So we don't, unless the conversation's close, but it's not systematically capturing those conversations.
Right.
And that's the challenge. Yeah, that's the challenge. Like, you can't over-rely on the video right now, because if you're a good observer, you're getting in the middle of student conversations and looking over their shoulders, and so that's just part of the challenge right now.
Yeah. The last thing that Robbie pointed out is the curriculum sharing website that we built for our computer programming model. The logic being that we recognize a huge need for all students to learn computer programming, and there is a gigantic deficit between people writing computer programs and people writing curriculum. So our mission is to make every lesson that we write, every piece of material that we create, free and available online. So without being logged in, I mean, anybody with a search engine is able to access every single unit we've created. So we can open up and see this was our first unit, gives a good description of the unit, breakdown of the different goals and objectives, and then every single lesson. Inside of each lesson, you have that lesson's goals, objectives, it includes cross-curricular connections, and a detailed script of the entire lesson. You can see this is one day's lesson broken out. And then it also has the starter projects and materials needed. It even includes video tutorials of the content for that lesson, and several of the lessons also have video of the teacher teaching that lesson. That one didn't. Let's see. Oh, you have to be logged in to see the video, I believe, right now, but that will change eventually. So you can also see the individual projects along with the rubrics that are used for that project. On top of having all of the lessons available, you also have tutorials that are interactive. So these are our actual tutorials that we built out that teach our curriculum. So when a student comes in late into the school year, or if a student needs help remediating, they can actually go through and experience the lesson through our website as an independent interactive module. We've also found this particularly helpful for parents who are interested in learning about what their kids are doing. So we have currently districts across the country that have already started using this material. Other schools that are interested and looking at how do we get this rolled out. And we certainly are promoting this and trying to get the word out that these resources are available. I was just talking with Kimberly over from Brook Schools yesterday. They just hired a director of coding, and he was when he found out that all of the lessons that he had just been hired to write were here and available. He's a pretty happy fella.
He's going on vacation.
Yeah.
So what does it cover? All the lessons through like HTML through, because I know you have your progressive curriculum. So what's developed out so far?
Right. Yeah. So the first semester, 5th and 8th grade, looked pretty similar. The Intro to Scratch unit is really all about animation and leveraging technology to tell stories. It introduces basic concepts of programming through also representing digital media as a form of communication. From there, we segue into an introduction to HTML and CSS, which we're in the middle of rebuilding to where it's combined, where students in the unit building an advocacy page. It's a website promoting a topic that they choose that they want to sort of amplify awareness of. From there, it starts to split off. The 1st and the 8th graders both did game design. However, the rigor pacing looked different for 5th grade than it did 8th grade. Now, it is continuing to use Scratch with coding language. I don't know if you all have Scratch. Mm-hmm. But instead of hand typing out code, it allows a set of blocks to create computer programs. Mm-hmm. So the 5th graders are still working with Scratch. So to create animation, you're starting to bring out these blocks, right? Yep. And now we can make our sprite move, and the coding goes from there. So our 8th graders have already started to dive into JavaScript. Our 8th graders right now are using the Khan Academy interactive JavaScript module in tandem with actual custom-built lessons and projects. So they're not just sitting in front of Khan Academy during class. They're actually encouraged to do that in the first 10 minutes of class, and then we go through a lesson after they've worked with it. And from there, we're going to go into actually building interactive web pages with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS together. And then all of our 8th graders go to high school next year and start college-level AP Computer Science freshman year.
Ryan, you want to give an update about some of the work you're doing with Amplify on the AP Computer Science front?
Yeah, so Amplify has an amazing MOOC that is for AP Computer Science. Their target market right now is students who want to take AP Computer Science, but it's not offered at their school. We are planning on using that as a part of our flipped classroom model in high school. So students will do the Amplify modules at home, and that allows the classroom to be very project-based instead of content delivery-based. I then reached out to Amplify mainly just to sort of explore if there were any opportunities for collaboration, because I was so impressed with the quality of their MOOC. A lot of MOOCs that I've seen through Coursera or edX or some of the other platforms are not necessarily the most aligned to the actual College Board objectives. And sometimes those delivery mechanisms can be a bit stale. Amplify is really engaging. And they actually said that they were in introduction to AP Computer Science. So they wanted a whole new MOOC that was JavaScript as a sort of prerequisite for AP Computer Science. And since we were already building that, we've been in conversations, and nothing is publicized yet. We're finishing up some legal contract around promotional materials and stuff. But we most likely are going to be collaborating with Amplify to build an entire MOOC. One of our teachers will be the film professor, and then they are using their existing platform for online assessments with the questions that we're generating for our 8th graders this year. So it's a really beautiful relationship that we're forming with them, and as soon as we have the T's crossed and I's dotted on the contracts, we'll certainly be doing a lot of promotion around it.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's the bulk of the materials we've created. Are there any other questions that I can answer for you guys?
And are you creating these on your own, Ryan, or what's the team behind the?
He's not even. He's not even a one person doing it, because this wasn't even his job description. The coding.
Yeah. yes, all of that is true.
We're trying to build a team. So and Lydia knows this. We surprised ourselves by how much happened so quickly that we didn't build it into our sort of funding model.
Yep.
and so we're now like trying to reach out to different folks, like especially unconventional sources like the tech industry and whatnot, to try to build out a team here.
Yeah, what are you trying to raise?
What do you say?
How much are you trying to raise?
It's let me not answer that right now.
Okay.
But there's just a couple of projects going on. There's the inside the organization as a whole, then the dissemination piece, but then there's certain projects that are unique to the schools.
Yeah.
Ryan,
Let me know, Robbie, when you've got a number, let me know. That way, when I'm walking around, I can
totally.
in my back pocket.
Yeah, and one cool project to mention is that we're one of our board members' dad was like the chief information officer for Healthcare Corporation of America, which is the biggest company in Nashville, and he just passed away, the father, recently, and so one of our board members and the Nashville community are raising money to create a computer science center in our high school in honor of that guy. His name's Thomas Cato, and so Ryan is working now to create like a totally collaborative, different type of space that's going to be in the high school. And Ryan, if you're comfortable, you might want to share those plans.
Already on it.
Awesome. And so that's a side project outside of like what we're trying to raise in terms of building out the team.
Cool.
But oh, there you go.
So this is an overview of the schematic for the facility. The idea being that we wanted the best possible computer science center for our students, but we also want to make sure that there are opportunities available for all of the kids in Nashville that are going to benefit so much from having these skill sets that don't necessarily have it offered in their school. So this meets both of those needs. You've got a core classroom that's set up for collaboration. I've got some better pictures down here. So the core classroom set up in a way to where each group has their own group monitor. Each student, it's set up wireless HDMI throughout the whole building. So any student can screencast to any television or monitor at any time. So if this group has something and suddenly they want to share it with the rest of the groups, they just put it on everyone else's screen. All of that's controlled by the teacher wirelessly. So the core classroom there is obviously going to be used for our AP Computer Science, but it's also going to be the core learning lab. We're working on getting outside volunteers and after school clubs and workshops that are going to be available. We've got an IT lab that is actually networked in with the high school's servers and IT equipment. And with gradual release by the teacher, students will be able to actually interact not only with the local server that we build, but also with a web server that we're creating that will host this software. Yep.
Just to clarify, when he says we've got, he means like we want to.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you. The vision is that is very true.
Entrepreneur speak.
Yeah.
Yes. You've got lots of team and group collaborative rooms, and you've also got built in an entire robotics lab with Vex Robotics and Lego Robotics. You've got media rooms that'll be set up with audio recording equipment, video editing equipment, Photoshop, graphic design equipment, and then also a conference room. One of our big pushes here is recognizing two major areas of need in software, which is third world country and nonprofits serving third world countries, and then nonprofits here at home, both of which suffer from having a huge need for high quality software solutions, but typically not budgets to pay the high prices of software developers. That imbalance is a part of what we're addressing by teaching everyone to code, but in the meantime, we want to be able to leverage the high school students that have taken to this and are really learning how to build meaningful applications to design solutions for those market segments around the world. So an ideal world is you have a nonprofit in Uganda that's dealing with needing a way to geolocate tracking of clean drinking water so that can then be shared out with other nonprofits in the area. They have a great vision and they know what they need. It's a pretty simple solution, but to pay a professional developer, you're looking at 6 figures almost instantaneously. So instead, why not leverage that to our students and let them network with that nonprofit directly so that then they're able to get the real-world experience and solve real-world needs.
Love it. Wow. I want to come to high school.
That was sort of the starting point of everything. Yeah. What did we miss and wish we had had?
Awesome.
Funny
Ryan, how do we call you?
Yeah, how do we? Well, I think part of it is we're trying to figure out things that Ryan does that he doesn't have to be doing, so that we get the whole Ryan. instead of partial Ryan right now. That's step one. He's also training coders, and so part of our plan is one of our strongest folks internally is going to ascend, who's been teaching coding all year. Same teacher who had the 100% advanced on the algebra test last year, will be ascending into Ryan's role to do the day-to-day on the computer programming instructional model with the middle schools, while Ryan becomes our chief information officer and a partner in the organization starting in the summer, and where he'll just be focusing on this full time. So that's the short story. Now that's like one of 100 steps that needs to happen, but that's the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
Cool. Guys, any other
This is awesome.
questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks so much for your time.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Y'all have a great day.
Great rest of your week. Thanks, guys.